Colin! 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 Come on, you little Colin.
I apologise for any of the lighting problems in this next bunch of vlogs where you'll see me in front of the bookcase with my red shirt on. We've got some very unpredictable weather at the moment. 5 minutes ago it was nice and bright and the lighting was good, but now it's gone all dark and stuff again. And if this continues throughout the week, then I'm just going to go behind the camera, because otherwise it's just too stressful. This is why I don't like doing stuff in front of the camera, and I just try to get it over with as quickly as possible. Yes, so here we are for episode 2 of Rain. And of course I can't really control any of the sounds you might hear, like cars going by. If you hear any rumbling, that's just my laundry. Oh, but I got my iced tea. That's the important thing. Right. Episode 2 of Rain. Are you going to behave, Alan? Come on. Jump! Wonder if you can see it on the camera. Yay! You can see it on the camera. Hooray! Say hello to the people looking to the camera. Looking to the camera. Okay, so Alan is here to talk about episode 2 of Rain with me. I tried recording episodes 2 and 3 yesterday as well, and along with episode 1, it just did not work. I was just unable to function, mostly because filming the first one took 2 attempts, because I kept getting interrupted, mostly by Alan, but also because it was such a hot and sweaty day. It's still a very hot and sweaty day, but after your first take goes back so badly, you sort of lose much motivation. Then you gather up enough energy to film the first one, and then by the time you try to film again, your mind just melts. My brain melted yesterday. It was not fun. And I just kept losing my place. So I watched them back just now, and I just thought, now let's do this all again. So I'll just see how far I go, rather than push myself more than I'm comfortable with. You are so fluffy. And I suppose it all fits in with this whole pilot thing, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I look too pale. Let me try and... That's better. That's better. Okay. Obviously I can play around with filters when I'm done. So this is the first episode that has the opening sequence that you see in each episode from now on, with Nostradamus doing a monologue of, since Mary, Queen of Scotland, was a child, the English wanted her country and her crown. She is sent to France to save herself and her people. Obviously this wasn't in the pilot. Sometimes with the opening of some series where they have literally just filmed the pilot and are just hoping that they're going to get a next episode or like a whole season to explore, then they usually don't put an opening credit sequence in, because they want as much time as possible to introduce the characters and the plot points and hook people in. So I'd say that this episode's a bit like the second part of a two-parter. If like you consider the first 2 episodes are like, you know, the pilot part 1, this is pilot part 2. So this resolves the incident with Colin and sets up how Mary and her ladies are going to go forward in this French court. Yes, in the last episode, Mary was told, and by extension her ladies were told, that Colin was executed for trying to... I don't want to say the word on YouTube because monetization bots, but for trying to take advantage of Mary while she was drugged. But she was not drugged, and she caught him in the act, and she screamed, and the guards took him away, and everyone thought, oh my gosh, he was trying to assault her. And he was taken away and told that he was executed. And Mary doesn't believe that Colin did that of his own free will. She and her ladies are convinced, especially Susan, are convinced that he was forced into doing this, but by whom they don't know. And the fact that Colin is still alive, and Colin was meant to die. This was always the plan, that for Catherine de Medici to have Colin killed. However, because of Bertha Mason, who lives in the walls of the castle, she did the old switcheroo where she went down to the castle dungeons, because this castle is fairy tale enough, it's got a fucking dungeon as well, and painted a red X on the wrong door, so a poor innocent thief, well, I say an innocent thief, but like depends how you see the ethics of thievery, but like just this poor guy who'd been a thief ended up getting executed instead, and Colin is stretched on the rack because the guy who's torturing him thinks that he's a thief. That's how the episode opens, with Colin being tortured on the rack, and then the Inquisitor is called away. As if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes here. The Inquisitor is called away or distracted by Bertha, and then Bertha lets Colin go and tells him to run. And I was just like, bold of you to assume that someone can get off the rack that easily and ask you would like a word. So Colin escapes and everyone finds out about it. And Mary's like, oh my gosh, we must find Colin and clear his name. And Francis and Bassie decide to help. I mean, Bassie is the one that goes and does the dirty work. Because if Sebastian can't go into the Bloodwood and save a man who has been falsely accused of certain acts, what kind of bastard would he be? You guys should see Black Butler, otherwise you're not going to get any of those references. So the main plot of the episode is finding Colin and getting him before the wrong people get to him. Catherine de Medici obviously wants him captured and killed before he can blab to Mary. And meanwhile, the whole politics plot line is that Francois' younger brother Charles is arranged to marry a French noblewoman, and they decide to go and meet her because she's supposed to be arriving by ship, because she's probably, I wasn't paying attention, she's supposed to be arriving on the shore of France, several hours away from the castle. And Mary decides to go with Francois and Charles to go and meet her, because she thinks, oh, I can be like a kindred spirit to this little girl who has been sent to go and live in the court where she is a stranger. I know how that feels, so I'm going to go and do my queenly duties. The intense drama of these scenes, and the fact that I'm getting the feeling that the creators really doubt the intelligence of their audience, was revealed to me in the scene where they arrive on the coastline to meet the girl, because I didn't remember her name, so don't ask me to remember it. They pull up in the coach and then they all get out, and they leave Charles in the coach, and Mary and Francois walk to the coastline, and Francois looks like nobody owns him. They're supposed to be receiving a noblewoman into their court, and he looks like he's literally thrown on the first doublet and hose that smells okay off the laundry pile. He's supposed to be the Dauphin of France. He's supposed to show the regality of the French court. Anyway, they're on the edge of the cliff, and they look down, and then they see, oh, the boats are arriving. And then Francois's like, hang on, those are armed men. And then slowly pans up, and they see a ship in the harbour, and then you could literally hear the Jeopardy music going ding 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 ding, because the ship has a massive St. George's cross on it. And then Francois was suddenly like, that's an English ship. And I was like, no, you don't say. They think that the English have come to invade, and they're all jumping into action until Bassie rides up. Let me just Alan, come on, let me get you a plastic bag. There you go. So I don't want Alan crawling over everything, so give him a plastic bag and he will sit down and be happy. Who says you can't herd cats? What is it with cats and plastic bags? I don't get it. Yes, so Bassie rides up, and then he says, wait, no, it's okay, the English are just helping. They're just helping escort these people, and they've got a diplomat from England visiting the court. And I was thinking, like, this never would have happened in England because Henry VIII spent that money that he stole from the monasteries on building castles around the coast so they could watch out for invaders. And that's kind of one reason why England was never successfully invaded in the Tudor era. Of course, because they establish here that Bassie is the fastest rider, so he's ridden all the way from the castle to tell Francois and Mary. But usually this is why when you ride out as royals or as part of the cotillion of courtiers, you have people ride ahead to tell you we have to take a different path because there are people on that road who mean us harm. So then they meet the little girl and they all go back to the castle. Again, I really wish they would just name the place and not just keep calling it the castle, the castle, the castle. Can we just call it like the Louvre? Even if it doesn't look like the Louvre, I will be okay with just calling it the Louvre. And then there is a party to welcome Charles's new bride. And this is where we find out Bertha's real name is Clarissa, but I'm still going to call her Bertha because of Jane Eyre, and I can't get that out of my head. I guess Clarissa's the love child of Bertha Mason and the Phantom of the Opera because she lives in the walls and she covers her face. You don't need to tell me who Clarissa really is in the comments. You do know by episode 11 who she really is by then. Yes, it is a very stupid reveal. Anyway, Mary's other big conflict in this episode is that she is now being targeted by the English in order to be scared away from France and bugger off back to Scotland where she won't be a threat to the English. Well, she'll be less of a threat to the English because she will still be the Scottish Queen who has a claim to the English throne, but if she's not married to France, she doesn't have the backing of another country. The English diplomat Simon plants a woman in her bedchambers wearing one of Mary's dresses and pretends that the dress has been poisoned, and while Mary runs off to go and find some help, the girl disappears. And then it turns out, oh right, this was just Simon trying to scare Mary into thinking that everything was trying to kill her. And Mary, when Mary finds out about it, she confronts Simon and he says, you know, you're the Scottish Queen, you marry France and you'll have more of a chance of claiming England, we can't have that. And Mary says, I don't want the English throne. And yes, it's every time someone says I don't want the English throne, I'm going to do an I don't want it. I don't want it. She is my queen. I don't want it. But Mary saying, I don't want the English throne, makes me say Francis Walsingham would say otherwise. So Bassie goes looking for Colin, and he finds Colin strung up by his ankles in the godwood, or not the godwood. What do they call it? The bloodwood? Yes, because for some reason the royal family of France lives right next to a forest with a bloodthirsty pagan cult living in it that engage in a lot of human sacrifice. This is normal. And you guys remember in the Persuasion review when I talked about my giant fan and how I would get it out and flutter every time a woman was alone with a man with no chaperone? Well, here it is. It was a gift from back when my mum was the Sheriff of Nottingham. So Bassie goes and finds the body of Colin, who is strung up, upside down, with his throat gashed open. He's been bled out, and it looks like he's been sacrificed by the cult. And Francois, concerned for his brother, goes after Bassie. That is when we and Francois are really introduced to the idea of this bloodthirsty cult. It's weird, it's very, very weird. So this cult believes in a lot of human sacrifice, a life for a life, that they start surrounding Bassie and Francois as Bassie cuts down the body, and they're going to take him back to the castle so he can be sent home for a proper burial. And the cultists aren't happy about that. They're like, no, you're taking what's ours. And Bassie cuts his hand open and says a pagan prayer. Like, they never actually say what kind of paganism that this is. They just say pagan as a blanket term, even though there were tons of pagan religions. We consider the religion surrounding Greco-Roman deities its own religion, or the Norse religion is a pagan religion. But they just refer it to these people that blood sacrificing people. We haven't had every question answered by episode 11, but don't tell me in the comments, I want to be surprised. So Francois is very suspicious as to how Bassie knows these things, because he said, like, you sound like you knew that by heart, and he says, oh, it's just something to keep them appeased while I was trying to do what Mary asked me to do. And Francois is not convinced. And of course, when they all find out that Colin is dead and they'll never know who sent him, then Mary is upset, Susan is upset, Catherine de Medici revels in this victory, even though she is annoyed that such a plot fell out of her control. And as she prepares to go to bed, she pulls back her covers and there's a massive red X in her bed that was obviously left there by Bertha as a warning. And I just thought, wow, that's some period. That's what happens when you don't put a liner in before you go to bed on heavy flow day. And it seems that Nostradamus knows about Bertha's existence and talks to her frequently. And you will find out why later on down the line. And I suppose the only other plot point to talk about in this episode is that between Kenna and Henri. Because in the last episode, when they were making out on the stairs, they didn't actually do it. She didn't sleep with him because she is at the French court to find a good match and she has to hold on to her virtue in order to do so. So she can't let her fling with the king sabotage that. And so Henri is respectful of Kenna's boundaries, at least. So he gets this guy that Kenna was flirting with earlier in the episode to agree to marry Kenna, although I don't think that ever goes anywhere. And then, even though he's in this situation where he could have pressed his advantage and taken Kenna right there, he buggers off. Obviously, I think that's more to tease Kenna and make her want him even more, but on the bright side of all this, like, you don't have King Henri pressuring Kenna, because I bet it would have been so easy to have Henri pressuring Kenna and love bombing her and making it all romantic. But yeah, he actually seems to respect her boundaries and is willing to wait until she's ready. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about episode 2 of Reign. So yeah, I know that a lot of the historical facts in this are very few and far between, so I'm more looking at this as someone who has studied a lot about writing and likes writing herself, and just how this is portrayed on screen and the writing of the characters, and so far it's okay, it's harmless. Obviously it feels very condescending in some terms where they're pointing out things that people can see for themselves, and it clearly thinks that people don't know anything about the history of Mary Queen of Scots or the French court, and just points stuff out to people. And of course, yeah, the dresses were still hideous though. I nearly chose Ailey for the worst dress award this week, because there is a scene where all 4 Marys are in the garden during the garden party and they're wearing these dresses, like each more hideous than the last, and I was about to pick Ailey for the most hideous dress in that scene. They looked very baggy on the front because there is a certain body type to these Marys. They're all fairly thin, they have very small chests, they're very much playing to a certain aesthetic, so these dresses looked as if they needed someone with a little more meat on her chest in order to make the dress look good, otherwise it looks like they're wearing sacks. Yeah, but Kenna wins the worst dress award. When King Henri comes to see her with this guy that he's trying to set her up with, she's wearing bloody lingerie as a dress. It's she's like wearing something that's got like cups around here and a clear divide between her tits, and you might think that that's just what she wears in bed, but she was clearly wearing it earlier in the episode when they all found out that Colin died. I definitely remember seeing that earlier, so that's definitely something she deigns to wear in public. My first instinct all the way up at the beginning of the episode was to give it to Kenna for her nightdress, because at the start of the episode they all meet up in the early morning. Susan's still asleep while the other 4 meet outside and talk about what's happened. Everyone's wearing floor-length night dresses and Kenna looks like she's wearing a romper because the skirt is so short. Anyway, that's Reign episode 2. 76 to go. Oh my god, what did I get myself into? I'm going to quickly thank my patrons, and thank you guys for supporting the channel. If you want to see the next 76 videos about Reign, then please make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss a single vlog. I have filmed the first 11 vlogs, and they are available on Patreon for Duke and Duchess and King and Queen patrons. Speaking of King and Queen patrons, they get a shout out in the credits because they're the highest level contributors to the channel. Thank you so much, Alison Cuff, Larissa, Lady Eternal, Leslie Williams and Jill My Nero. You girls are amazing. So we are going to move on to the next episode right now. Oh my gosh, I'm going to do the thing.